guys, how are you doing tonight? How's your Tuesday evening going? Is it going good? Is it going so-so? Is it going bad? Maybe your week's off to a great start because your favorite football team won their first game of the season this past Sunday. Or maybe it's off to a bad start because your favorite football team lost their first game of the season. Specifically, I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. I personally am not too big a fan of them, but I watch their games and I'm not too surprised that they lost, but I'll keep more comments to myself because the furthest of my football knowledge goes to touchdown, field goal, and tackle. Besides that, I don't know anything about football. But regardless, guys, I hope your day is going well, and if not, I hope this message can be an encouragement to you, can be an upliftment to you, or just this whole service. Maybe the worship itself was an upliftment to you and to your spirits. So, like always, before we go any further, y'all already know the drill. I want you guys to share this live right now. So if you're watching on our Instagram live, go ahead, click a little play in the corner and send it to a friend. Or if you're watching on our YouTube channel, copy and paste that link and send it to a friend via text message. Because tonight, we are continuing our series this month titled Level Up. Last week, we kicked off our series and we talked about checking our environment. And we need to check our environments because sometimes the environment we're in is not good for us. It's actually toxic to us. It's harming us. It's not benefiting us in any way. And we want to be in an environment that's going to benefit us, that's going to help us grow, that's going to help us thrive. So we need to check our environment, which is the question I proposed to you last week. So I hope you took time to check your environment, see if it was good for you, if it was bad. And if it was bad, I hope you make the courageous decision to uproot yourself from that environment and place yourself into good soil. So continuing our series, as we go into week 2 of our series titled Level Up, we're going to be talking about practice. And you're like, Sarah, practice? Okay, let's see where this goes. Well, I'm glad you're asking. So tonight, the title of the message is Prep and Practice. Prep and practice. Go ahead, type that below in the comments. Prep and practice. If you're taking notes, which I highly encourage you to, guys, because when we go live on Wednesdays for our Instagram live party at 7 p.m., you will have the opportunity to possibly win some prizes, but you'll only be able to win the prizes if you answer questions about the service, about the sermon. So if you want a prize, if you want a chance to win something, last week they gave out, I believe, a Starbucks gift card and Chick-fil-A gift cards. So if you want a chance to win something like that, I highly encourage you to take notes. So once again, the title of this message is Prep and Practice. Tonight, we'll be talking about how practice is necessary in order to level up. I'm sure many of you watching tonight, maybe you played sports while you were growing up. You played sports since you were a wee little boy or a wee little girl to now you're already in high school. Maybe you're going to college. You've played sports some way in your life. And I'm pretty sure all you remember when you're in sports, maybe specifically when you're older, like your coach would tell you, if you don't practice, you can't play, which is a rule pretty much all coaches had. And maybe at the time you're like, oh, like I'm a star athlete. I'm the best in the team. I don't need to practice. But your coach saw that practice was necessary in order for the team to win the game. You need to practice. We need to practice in order to truly level up. You see, if there is no need to practice, then anyone could play a game. Anyone could be an NBA player. Anyone could be Leonardo da Vinci, I believe, an artist. Anyone could be what they want to be if there is really no need for practice. You see, for example, you take a high school swimmer and you put him up against an Olympic gold medalist swimmer. If you were to put the two to race in the pool, do a couple of laps and see who had the best time, I'm pretty sure we would all put our bets on the Olympic gold medalist swimmer because he's had more practice. He's had more time to develop his skill compared to the high school swimmer who possibly just joined his swim team for fun because his friends did. You see, you need to practice in order to develop your skills. I want to go ahead and share a story with you found in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 16 and 17. It's kind of a lot, so I'm going to summarize it for you. I'm going to try to compact it as much as I can. But if you turn me in your Bibles, or you want to turn me on your electronic Bibles to 1 Samuel chapter 16. In this book, it's basically these chapters are about a man named David. I'm pretty sure many of you know him. He ends up being a king in the Bible. His name is King David. But specifically in these stories, it's one of his most famous ones, where he's known for his battle with Goliath, where he defeated the giant. So this is what basically the book is, but it kicks off 1 Samuel chapter 16 with this. We find there's a man named Samuel, and Samuel was a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord spoke to this man named Samuel, and he said, it's time for you to move on from King Saul. King Saul was the current king of Israel, the current king of the Israelites, but he had lost favor with God. So the Lord instructed this man named Samuel, saying, you need to go find the next king. And Samuel, being obedient, said, okay, well, where do I go, Lord? Where is the next king? And he tells him to go to a town named Bethlehem and find a man named Jesse, because one of his sons was going to be the next king of Israel. And when he sees when he sees the sons, he will know which one was handpicked by the Lord to be king. It kicks off. Samuel he goes on this journey to go find this man named Jesse and see his sons. And when Samuel finally finds him, Jesse presents one of his oldest sons to him, and the son's name is Eliab. And when Samuel saw him, he saw that he was built, he had muscles, he had been working out, he was good looking. And Samuel's like, man, this must be the guy, this must be the next king. But the Lord told him, do not consider his appearance or height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So even though he was good looking, the Lord was like, it's not him, his heart's not right, he's not king. So Samuel goes, all right, God, well, let's see, on to the next one. And Samuel sings all of Jesse's sons, his next 7 sons, and each one did not pass the test. The Lord did not indicate that they were the ones to be king. So Samuel's like, hey, Jesse, I know you showed me all these sons, and they were all great candidates. Don't get me wrong, your sons are great. But you happen to have another son, because the Lord says neither one of them are meant to be king. And Jesse says, well, I have one more son, and he's the youngest of them all. He's my 8th son, and he's actually out tending to the sheep right now. And Samuel says, well, go get him. Like, let's see if he's the one. Can you go get him, please? So Jesse sends out for his son. And this son is, of course, David. David was out tending to his father's sheep, tending to the flock. And so we pick up with David. So David is presented to Samuel. And when Samuel sees him, the Lord tells him, that's him. That's the next king of Israel. And so Samuel gets oil and he anoints David. And so now David is indicated to be the next king of Israel. Moving on and jumping to chapter 17. Now we have this background information. David was just the youngest of his family. He was out in the field tending to his father's sheep. Keep that in mind. He was tending to sheep, to a flock. So we jump to chapter 17. And in here we find that there is now a battle going on between the Israelites and the Philistines. And now this battle, it was a pretty big one. These Philistines were pretty scary. So these Israelites, the king of the time was still King Saul. He's like, man, these guys are pretty good. Like, this is going to be an intense battle. You know what? I only want the best soldiers to be in this army, to be in this battle. And so it just so happened that Jesse had 3 of his sons out of the 8 to be a part of the battle. And one of them was not David. David still stayed back, and he was still tending to his father's sheep. But David, what he would do is that he would go out there and he would go deliver food and supplies to his brothers and the rest of the soldiers who needed it, because it was in a long battle that they needed to have supplies. So as we said, as we continue on, there's the man David. He does all this, but he doesn't really do anything in the battle. He's just kind of the back and forth man. He's like how would you say nowadays, your curbside deliverer in HEB. You know, you just put in your phone the groceries you want and someone brings it to you. That was pretty much David. His brothers would request specific foods and David would just bring it to them. So now we pick up and there's the battle going on. And then specifically in the army of the Philistines, there was this man named Goliath. And he was a giant man. And when I say giant, I mean giant. I believe it's estimated, historians believe he was about 9 foot tall. And to give you reference, I'm about 5'3". So he was a pretty tall man. He was huge. So obviously, if you see a big person like that, your probably natural instinct is to be afraid. And that's exactly what the soldiers of the Israelites were. They were afraid of him. They were like, we're not going towards him. We're not fighting him. And knowing the fear he had over the Israelites, Goliath would purposely go out to right on the edge of the battle line where there was the Philistines and then there was the Israelites. He would purposely go to the edge of the line and he would taunt the Israelites. He would know, as a little kid, they go, na 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 boo boo. I don't think Goliath would say that, but he would just taunt them. And he would tell them, and he told them this specifically. Let me see. If we turn to it, he would say that whoever could come out and fight him and kill him, that all the Philistines will fall and be subjects to the Israelites. So basically he was saying, if any one of you guys can take me on, you can defeat me, then we'll all be your slaves. Basically, we'll surrender to you. And obviously no one wanted to step up to that challenge. It was insane. It was scary. He was a giant man. Well, then one day when David's doing his regular job, he's bringing groceries to his brothers. His brothers are actually preparing to go out to the battle line. And so he decides to tag along. He's like, oh, well, I'm here, might as well, I could be of help. So he goes out to the battle line with them, and he sees Goliath, and he just sees him there, and he doesn't really do anything. But then once Goliath starts taunting him, something just stirs inside David, and he's like, no, you're not going to do that here. Because David knew he wasn't just insulting the Israelites, he was insulting God, and that did not sit right with him. So David, when they gather all together, he gathers with the soldiers, and he tells them, like, what he's doing isn't right, like, something needs to be done. But no one wanted to step up to the battle. So if you turn me specifically now to 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 34, my bad. 1 Samuel 17:34. David says this, but David said to Saul, your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Saul said to David, go, and the Lord be with you. David was just basically a delivery boy. He wasn't meant to be fighting anyone. He wasn't meant to be going out to battle. But he saw this and it didn't sit right with him. And he said, you know what, guys? I have some experience with killing a lion, killing a bear. I think I could take this guy on. And I'm pretty sure many of the soldiers doubted him. Like, David, that's just a lion. It's a bear. Do you think you can really take on this giant 9-foot man? But David said, I can do it. The Lord, my God, is with me. So he goes, all right, go ahead, dude. It's your funeral. You want to die? You can die. So they begin to dress David in armor, and they give him, they just kept him from head to toe. And instead of picking out a sword as his weapon, he picks up a sling and some rocks, specifically 5 smooth rocks. So basically a slingshot and rocks. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was going into battle with a giant man, a slingshot would be my first pick. I'd be going for that sword or maybe even a gun for further distance and safeties. I wouldn't go for a slingshot. But David chose that as his weapon because that's what he was familiar with. That's what he knew how to use. So quickly, David, when they go back up to the battle line, Goliath sees this little, basically a puny human, a tiny man approaching him, and he begins to basically laugh and mock him and was like, what are you gonna do to me? You're tiny, I'm big. Like, there's no really battle to be had here, little boy. But David stands his ground, and he's prepared to fight with the weapon he has, his slingshot and his rocks. And basically Goliath goes, all right, well, let's battle. So soon the Goliath took off, and he was running towards David. And if I saw a man running towards me, I would take off, like no questions asked. But David didn't do that. He ran towards Goliath. He ran towards the danger. And as he's running, he picks up out of his little, let's say, I don't want to say a purse, but his little side bag he had the rocks in. He picked up the rocks out. He put it in the slingshot. And as he's running, he's swinging the sling, and he lets go. And that rock's just flying. I can imagine just flying, probably like slow motion in the movie, just going, pew. And as the rock going, it hits Goliath dead in the center of his forehead. And it was just a tiny rock, and he was a giant man. But that tiny rock was enough to bring him down and face plant onto the ground, killing him. Not just injuring him, killing him. You see, in that moment, David knew that he was able to take on the giant because of what he had previously done with God's favor. He was able to put what he did in practice, he was able to do publicly. Because if we refer back to that verse I read earlier, it says that he killed a lion and a bear just with his slingshot and with his hands. He practiced, and he was able to do it in public. You see, in the time, he may have not known he was practicing for something this big, this monumental, because he ended up winning the battle for the Israelites. They ended up winning over the Philistines. So in the time, he may have not known what he was practicing for, but he did. He practiced. And because of that, he was able to level up and take on a huge giant, which won the battle. See, David's defeat to Goliath didn't just happen overnight. It didn't just happen because of his natural ability. It happened because he practiced. We need to practice in order to develop our skills. Which is the first point, not the first point, my bad, is one of the points of tonight. So one of the points I want you to write down, the first we can see from this is, when you practice, you discover your passion. Maybe David's passion wasn't exactly tending to sheep. It wasn't watching over his father's flock. But in the time, that's what he had to do. That's what he had to be passionate about in that moment. And when he did that, obviously he was able to discover his ability to use a slingshot. He was able to discover, dang, like I'm pretty good with this. Like this is a nice little skill to have developed. And he did that. You see, oftentimes people say practice makes perfect. But I want to go ahead and propose to you the idea that passionate practice makes perfect. You see, when you're passionate about something, you want to practice, you want to work at it, you want to continue to develop it. For example, when I was about, let's say, 12 years old, I decided I wanted to start playing the guitar. And I started playing the guitar, but once I realized how much time and effort it took, I kind of lost interest, which is sad to say, thinking about where I could have been if I kept up with it. But I wasn't passionate about playing guitar. I wasn't passionate about learning a new instrument. But had I been passionate about it, I could have perfected my skill because I would have continued practicing. So when you start to practice something, you begin to discover whether or not you have a passion for it. The second part of when you practice is, when you practice, you fix your mistakes. When you practice, you fix your mistakes. Recently, I started watching a survival show, and there's these young boys, and they're wanting their chance to go ahead and basically be a boy group. I mean, don't mock me for watching this show, but they basically want to be a boy group, and so basically the whole dancing and singing. So every week, every few days, they get a whole new test, and they have to basically learn the routine, learn the lyrics, and perform it to the judges. Well, during that point, if they have a week to learn it, at the midpoint, they'll have one of the judges actually come and watch them and evaluate them. And in the first episode when it was happening, they were kind of caught off guard. They didn't expect anyone to come and check in on them. And the judge tells them, now is the time for you to make your mistakes. And they're all like, make mistakes? Like, I can't make a mistake in front of you. And he said, no, Now is the time for you to make your mistakes so I can go ahead and correct you. So I can go ahead and tell you what you need to improve on. You see, it's in the practice time that we discover, hey, this isn't working out for me, or this isn't going so well, or I could work on here, I could work on this. Those type of things cannot be fixed in the game. It's during the practice time that you need to work out those kinks. You need to figure out what you can do better, what you need to work on. You see, when you're practicing, you begin to develop. So for me, when I'm speaking, I try to practice my pronunciation of words, being more thorough in my speaking. But if I don't practice it, if I were to come on here and just speak to you, trust me, it will be a total train wreck. You probably wouldn't even understand the thing I'm saying, because when I usually talk, I talk really fast, and I mean really fast. I run over my words. It's only my best friend can really understand me when I speak like that. But it's taken me time to practice and fix my mistakes to know what I need to work on and how I can develop my skill. The third thing we see is when we practice, we can enter the next level. You see, with David, he was just watching sheep when a lion and a bear came to attack. He wasn't intending to have to fight them, but he had to practice in that moment his skills of the slingshot, the skills of killing them, which ended up leading to him entering the next level and defeating Goliath. We have to practice in order to enter the next level. So tonight, I just want to ask you, raw youth, are you putting in that work to practice? Are you putting in that time? Because I know time is something we can never get back. But when you put in the time, when you put in the effort to practice, guys, it's worth it in the end. For David, it was worth it watching those sheep, because in the end, he was able to give a victory to his to the town, to the kingdom, for the Israelites. They won over the Philistines. He defeated a giant man, and it was worth it because he put in the practice. He put in the time. We need to practice in order to level up. So maybe for you guys, your calling, your God's calling you to be a musician, to sing, to try out for the worship team, and you don't want to. You're scared. You don't want to set aside that extra day to come over here to the church and practice, to meet with the team. But God's calling you to that. He can't take you to the next level in your gift to be singing like Mariah Carey if you're not putting in the practice for it. Or maybe it's not a spiritual gift you're having to practice. Maybe it's it's a gift, but maybe you're an artist. Maybe you love to draw, but you don't like to put in the time for it. It's real time consuming. Maybe you started off drawing stick figures, but because you put in that time, because you put in that practice, now you're drawing these beautiful portraits of people that I cannot draw because I am not an artist. I never put in that time to practice. So raw youth, what is it that you need to put to practice in order to level up? Because without practice, we cannot level up. Without passionate practice, we can never enter the next level. So tonight, I want to encourage you guys to practice, put in that time. It's going to be worth it. It's going to, in the end, you're going to be like, wow, God, you took me from A to Z. Like, look at my ability now. Look at my skill. And it's because you put in that time to practice. It's because you put in that time to say, you know what, God? I want to go into the next level. So with that in mind, guys, I want you to go ahead and bow your heads and close your eyes as we end this service. God, thank you so much for bringing us here today, Lord. Lord, thank you for allowing us to meet, even if it's via live stream, Lord. Lord, tonight's message was about prep and practice. We need to prep, God. We need to practice our skills, our abilities, our talents in order to go to the next level. Just like David, God, maybe he didn't know he was practicing in the moment. Maybe he didn't understand why those things were going on. But in the end, God, you used his time in the practice in private to go ahead and use what he learned to go ahead and give him a public victory over Goliath, God. God, Lord, I pray that you would give us the heart to want to practice, God. That you would give the individual who is watching right now and you begin to speak to them and put into their heart saying, Lord, that they want to practice, God. They want to begin to develop their talents. They want to begin to put in that effort, God. Begin to put aside that time to develop their gifts, God, their callings in you, their talents and their abilities, God. Lord, I pray that you just give us all the heart to want to practice, develop, and grow in order so we can all level up together, God. I ask all this in your name. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen, guys. Thank you so much again for joining tonight's service, guys. Remember, prep and practice. We need to practice in order to level up. Now, I hope you guys took notes on tonight's service because this Wednesday, we'll be having our Instagram live party. So if you want to win a prize, guys, make sure you tune in and you're ready to answer the questions we have ready for you. Okay, guys? We hope to see you on Wednesday on Instagram live at 7 p.m. Y'all have a good night.